Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire.
Let's do it. And I'll throw some other stuff in here as we go as well. So Notre Dame unveiled their green jerseys and uniforms for the September 23rd Ohio State game. Do you buy or sell the look?
I am a big buyer of the look, and hopefully you can see my screen in some ways, because I am presenting now the jerseys. So first,
Jerseys and pants, I guess we should say.
Yeah, the full combination. So I'll just start off kind of, I buy the look, and I would put the look at just about a 9 out of 10. And the only reason I wouldn't go a 10 out of 10 is because I would like just a little bit more white sprinkled in there. But I thought they nailed the uniforms with the green, all green, white lettering and the gold trim. I would have maybe liked to see like a whiter gold kind of stripe down the side of the pants, but I think if you're going to go green, you have to go all green. Like that's the emphasis. I saw a lot of people complaining on social media about, like why not go white pants or, whatever. And like, I get that, like would have been cool. Sure. But again, to me, if you're going to go green, you might as well do the whole thing. I just would have liked a little bit more color again, maybe with a white stripe or a white and gold stripe down the side of the pants, whatever it might be. I just would like to see a little bit more of the accents on the pants. But here are some of those more finer details. And yours truly put this beautiful slideshow together. I think the cleats look really cool too. Again, all green with the gold. And I like the minimal details. It's just got the ND emblem on the shoulder pads. Again, all white with the trim of gold. And the same thing you see on Sam Hartman's kind of hip pocket there. Above his thigh pad, another, Notre Dame emblem that's white and with the gold trim. And then here's some more kind of full zoomed out body pics. I think they look great all together. Like, again, I think if we wanted to get down to the picky nitty gritty, like we could, fine tune or tweak some stuff here or there. But I really think they nailed the jersey top, and that's the most important part. They kept it relatively simple, which again, I like. They didn't overcomplicate it. They didn't add a bunch of, like in some of the Shamrock Series uniforms, we see some unnecessary, in my opinion, stuff here and there. But these are really nice and simple. I like the shade of green. And again, if you're going to wear the green uniforms, I like the idea of going all out, wearing all green.
I think you hit it right there at the end. I think this is the best shade of green possibly they've ever had. I like this green. It's a lot better than the Kelly green that they've had. This look with, this is something that we've talked about. The white on green is much better looking than the blue on green.
Yes,
with those
100%.
Kelly greens that they've worn the last couple of years when they've had the greens. I like this a lot better. I can take or leave the green pants. I'd still prefer that they go gold, but at the same time, I also would not mind if they had a white pant to go along with this green jersey, because I think that would be a really good look as well.
A white stripe down the side and then maybe like a gold thinner stripe on each side of that white stripe. Like, wouldn't that like a pinstripe almost in baseball pants?
See, that's what
wouldn't that take it home for you if they went with these all green pants?
I think so, because I'm on record. I've pretty consistently said that I've never been a fan of the monochrome type, look, which is what this is, but it's different enough that I guess I can kind of forgive it a little bit. I agree. I think that, maybe a white stripe down the leg would kind of break it up a little bit, make it, look even a little bit crisper, like you said, but I can live with this because I like the green so much compared to what they've had before. So
I'm
that these jerseys are going to sell as well,
like crazy. Yeah. Like these, I can't wait to get my hands on one of these. I might have to buy a Sam Hartman jersey. I don't know, but I can't remember the last time I've been so excited to potentially buy a jersey, let alone a quarterback jersey for Notre Dame. And I think that these are nailed. And I think Sam Hartman wearing these along with Audric Estime is like your perfect kind of display, or mannequin, whatever you might want to call it.
Yeah. And from what I understand, we could be seeing another set of uniforms announced here in the near future, in terms of the Shamrock Series. So we'll see. Scale of 1 to 10. Rate the Jerry Maguire themed video they made to make the announcement.
So I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of people here, mainly you. I watched the video and I knew it was in reference to something, but I couldn't figure out what it was in reference to. I knew that they were trying to do something. I Googled Jerry Maguire. It is a 1996 film. That's the same year I was born. I think people got to cut me some slack here. I don't think I might have seen the movie. Like if it's, you've seen it. I know you've watched it. It's probably been on at the house at some point when I've, but I
Seen
just
it a
can't
few
remember
times.
it.
Yeah.
I can't really remember it. Again, I knew that they were trying to do something. It was in reference to something. So I'll have to leave it up to you of how well they pulled it off. But I don't think it was cringy or anything. I thought it was relatively funny, and I thought like most stuff that they've been doing, I like the effort of putting it into some sort of like skit. You know what I mean? It's better than years past of just kind of nothing, right? Like I think this brings just a little bit more fun and excitement to it, even if you're someone like me, where you're like, what is this in reference to?
They did. You see, and that's the thing. I mean, you're not that old. You're 27, and the movie, as you said, came out around the time you were born. The movie I think was like 95, 90. It was like in that range. So like Sam Hartman and Audric Estime, who were in the video, and Audric was doing the Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr., by the way, won an Academy Award for playing Rod Tidwell. Show Me the Money, was what the whole Audric was mimicking, was the Show Me the Money thing. I just felt like it was a bit of a dated reference. It wasn't like The Hangover last year, which is still like, it's actually kind of amazing to think of how old The Hangover is now. Like when you think of like The Hangover came out when there were still flip phones, like before the smartphone ever came out. And like if there was a smartphone when they were doing The Hangover, how much that changes the whole plot of that movie. And like that movie is like half as old as Jerry Maguire. So I just felt like they probably had to explain to Audric Estime exactly who he was, supposed to be mimicking in this. And like the tweets were coming out last night and they were doing the retweets. Did you know the human brain weighs 8 pounds? And, he's like throwing out Troy Aikman stats and all that stuff, which the kid is doing in Jerry Maguire. But, I thought they did a decent enough job of it.
Oh, that's what that was in reference to.
This is why I've got to give it like a 6.5, 7, just because if you're not probably 35 years or older, you don't get any of the references in that thing. So, and maybe even older than that, maybe even have to be closer to Vince's age. Cause like Vince would have been like 15 when that movie came out, and he's in his early 40s now. He's like 42 going on 43. So I don't know. They did a good enough job. It's just like very dated references though.
Yeah, I think I would have liked something a little bit more like Hangover-esque, right? Something a little bit more relevant, a little bit more current. And, maybe I start to think about like there's these recruits coming into college now. Like they.
You have no idea. You complete me, Derek says to Jesse. Uh-oh. Vince is here. I'm not throwing shade, but I know Vince doesn't remember anything, past like a 15-year-old reference. So
But yeah, I just think if someone like myself, like you reference, has a hard time, knowing what the references are, thinking about recruits who are even younger than I
right.
I think that would be my only complaint. I thought the video was well done. It was still overall like amusing, and I enjoyed it, even though I didn't know what was going on. And again, I appreciate the effort, right? It's like they don't just go out and say, here's our green uniforms and post some pictures. Like there's at least effort of something to accompany this reveal.
For sure. The old social media, Fighting Irish media, who's putting them together, they've been very creative the last few years. They've been coming on strong with all the stuff that they're cranking out over there. Shout out to Vince, though. All right, so Marcus Freeman told ESPN.com's Adam Rittenberg this in terms of his first-year approach compared to how he's approaching things with his team now. Here's what Freeman said. Last year, I'm talking about national championships, winning the 12th and all this stuff, and you're 9-4. That's what I've gone away from. Don't even talk about those things. All we need to do is focus on reaching our full potential. Who cares about week 12? Stop talking about national championships. That's too big. It's too big for them to really understand what it takes for that to be the result. That's been my mindset. That's got to be our mentality, that every game we perform at our full potential, we reach the full potential as a program. If that's good enough to beat every team we play, great. If not, then we better recruit better, but we control how we perform. So that, again, from Marcus Freeman. What do you think of that shift in mentality, Jess?
Yeah, I really like this shift in mentality. And I think it shows some of the maturity or the growth of Marcus Freeman. You know, as a head coach in year one to a head coach in year two. We talked about, what does Notre Dame need to change, or what does, the players need to look like, and the upgrade at quarterback and the upgrade at wide receiver and blah, 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 blah. I really think that one thing that is often overlooked is this is a young coach in year two at a big time university. And so to already have such a drastic change in mindset, to me, shows, again, really good growth on behalf of Marcus Freeman. And it's something that I personally buy into as well. There's no reason to get concerned about week 12 or, the overarching national championship umbrella or stuff like that. It's got to be, you focus on the data point at hand, and that is 1 week at a time. You play to your full potential 1 week at a time, and you do everything in your possibility to be prepared at that, per that given week. So I think you're going to see a team that is going to play better. And to me, this shrinks the opportunity for opportunities like Stanford or Marshall to kind of creep back in, because that's how those things get exploited. Is you're thinking too far down the road. You're thinking too far bigger picture. And a team like Stanford rolls in and executes a really solid game plan. And again, you're too concentrated on the bigger level rather than focusing on this game plan and what it takes to beat someone like Stanford.
Yep. And Tim B says, prove it by not playing down to lesser competition. And theoretically, just kind of what you were wrapping up with there, Jesse, this shift in mindset is geared toward, alleviating that, like not playing down to the level of competition. Because if you're talking about national championships right off the bat, your focus is way too big. You're not focused on this snap. Yeah, you're not focused on this snap, this play, the whole thing. And like, you can talk about cliches and all these different things, and coaches talk about the process and all that kind of stuff. But this is essentially like, if you're talking about winning national championships, which, like, that should be on your goal board or, up on, your team meeting room, that should be something that's up there. But your day-to-day focus has to be more on this kind of stuff that Marcus Freeman is talking about. And Andrew says he agrees with the quotes. The Red Sox have the same mentality in 2004 when they were down against the Yankees, one game at a time. Don't let us win tonight, like Kevin Millar said. Like, who's Notre Dame's Kevin Millar? Who's their big poppy, more importantly? Like, who's that guy for Notre Dame?
To me, it's got to be the guy who's got a lot of wisdom and experience. And even though that they haven't been in big-time games, I still think that they've played enough games to kind of know, that we can calm down here a little bit. We can find a relief valve to escape this. And to me, that's got to be Sam Hartman. He's the commander of your offense. He's got all of the experience to back it up. He's got to have the maturity to bring the calmness to the room when everything else seems to be on fire. Like that to me is Sam Hartman offensively. And then defensively, I'd have to go between it would have to be Bertrand for me, because I think that he's the overall leader of that defense. Either Bertrand or Kaiser, just because they're really they are going to control the entire defense. And again, they have a lot of that experience and veteran leadership.
I think Bertrand is your Millar. He's like that guy, like don't let us win tonight, like that emotional type stuff. But like, just based on how he performed, especially the second half of last season, Benjamin Morrison is like your poppy right now, though, right? Like your clutch guy, your guy that's going to make a play in a big moment.
Yeah. Gonna give you a game-changing type possession or play, right? Like that's what Big Papi was doing, was hitting home runs that were game-changing. In terms of defensively, a game changer is someone like Benjamin Morrison, who can flip the field and get you the ball back and create extra possessions.
I want to go back to the to the Jerry Maguire show me the money. Andrew with a good one. They should have brought in Sean Astin, Rudy's 30th year anniversary. Here's what they need to do. That's like the perfect, like they could have, like recreated the Dan Devine scene where they're, walking in and they're throwing the jerseys on the table. Coach, I don't want to wear blue. I want to wear green. I want to wear green jerseys, that kind of thing where like they're stacking the jerseys on the coach's desk. I think that's something like that for the next time they do a jersey reveal. I think that Rudy has to be worked in there somehow, don't you? Like everyone gets the Rudy references, right?
Yeah, especially if you're around Notre Dame, you'll definitely understand the Rudy references.
Yep.
So speaking of the green jerseys, we kind of got back on it. There's a group of people out there. Like I sent the green jerseys to a group text of mine. I was like, man, these green jerseys look awesome. And someone immediately said, it's basically along the lines of like, I wish they would never wear those cursed green uniforms. Do you buy into that at all? People saying that that the green uniforms have some sort of curse around them, or, it doesn't matter what you wear. And
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but they've actually played better not played better, but like the whole green is a jinx kind of thing used to be a thing. When they've worn something green in recent years, they've actually won games.
It used to be the green uniforms came out for every important game. It was like when Notre Dame and USC were like top 5 opponents, like, well, it's just a hard game that happens to go just the wrong way.
This is the way they should be doing it, though. And this is what I've said before. If you're going to do a green game, you do it how they've done it the last 2 years. You make the announcement well in advance. You let everyone know this is the green game. You're not doing it like, Boston College and some of these other games where, they've come out, they've warmed up in blue, they've gone back to the locker room, they come out, they're wearing green. It's like now you're saying we need the green to, to give us some kind of energy or emotion that's basically just going to wear off in 5 minutes once the ball is snapped. Just do it like they do now. Announce it well in advance, announce what your green game is going to be, and go with that.
See, I think it's funny because there's a conversation in the chat. Like, this is a real,
there we go.
This is a real thing. Like, I genuinely never knew that. I was like, this, it's just a jersey, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a jinx or a hoax. And people are like, well, after this game, this is when it was, nullified. But before that, they were, I don't know. I just think it's funny to see that dialogue going on.
That's exactly right. Wanted to go back. Andrew is asking, is Jaden Greathouse similar to Michael Floyd? Seems like he may play heavy minutes. I think he's going to play a lot this year. And I've not, gone all in with freshman receivers very much, but this is a very talented receiver. And again, like just going back to his route running and his hands, and the combination of the two, plus the size and just the physical athletic skills that he has. Like I don't know that he's going to produce necessarily like Michael Floyd right away. And I wouldn't get quite that carried away, but I do think this is a guy who's going to play a lot this year. I'm buying in on that already.
I like the comparison.
Yeah. And Andrew is asking, I think somebody might have answered this earlier. Yes, Zeke Correll is the center. And we were talking about guards earlier, but Correll is the center. Fill in the blank, Jess. Notre Dame 2024 offensive line commit Styles Prescod showing up at the Grill and Chill recruiting event Sunday wearing a Catholics versus Convicts t-shirt is blank.
Is a bold move, Cotton, but I respect it. At the end of the day, I respect it because
they could have done a dodgeball. They could have done a dodgeball.
I think it's I don't think you wear that shirt unless you are intending to make some sort of impression, right? Like you don't just show up to a Notre Dame cookout and basically reference one of the greatest, rivalries or moments in, college football / Notre Dame football history. So I love the boldness. I think it was awesome. And again, to me, it shows his intent and how serious, that Notre Dame means to him, right? Like you don't just, I just don't think you show up to something like this unless you have a lot of intent or interest in Notre Dame. So to me, it shows his commitment kind of to Notre Dame, I guess.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, you're walking in, you're announcing your presence with authority. Like you're saying, I'm Notre Dame through and through.
Right.
Like that's basically what Catholics versus convicts wearing that T-shirt says. If you're still a recruit and you're walking into an event like this, I'm Notre Dame through and through, and forget you if you think anything different about it. And I love the fact that Miami fans are still so butthurt about this whole thing. It's like 35 years later and counting, and they still can't get over it. Just watching that 30 for 30 from a couple years back that they did, and it's a bold move. It's a great move if you're Styles Prescod. I love it. And yes, they do play Miami next year, so it's going to be. I don't know. I think Vince and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. The that used to be one of the great Notre Dame rivals, Notre Dame and Miami, but it's just another game now. You hope it's going to be an exciting game. Should be a good game next year, but it's just another game. I don't think that it's included as a rivalry game anymore because it's just been off the schedule so much for the last 30 plus years. Speaking of rivals, I don't know if this is a rival thing, but so we've got coach on coach and player on coach verbal assaults going on. You've got new Broncos head coach Sean Payton saying former Broncos head coach and current Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett did, quote, one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL, end quote, with Russell Wilson in the Broncos last year. So that prompts Aaron Rodgers to go off on NFL Network. Here's his quote. Hackett is arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. I thought it was very out of line, inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's name out of his mouth, end quote. So, Jess, you've got Sean Payton shooting off on one side, Aaron Rodgers shooting off on the other side. Do you have a problem with anything either one of them said?
So I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this because there's multiple pieces to it for me. I think overall the situation is petty. Like it should have never happened. I think I do have a problem with what Sean Payton said on behalf or speaking about Nathaniel Hackett. But actually someone who I surprisingly agree with for once in this lifetime is Aaron Rodgers. I don't mind him. Like after what was said, I don't mind him coming out and saying what he said, but I don't think that Sean Payton should have said anything in the first place. And so it should never prompted anything. And so all this again is just a bunch of petty crap for me, but I actually respect Aaron Rodgers for sticking up for his coach because, Vince and I kind of talked about this a little bit last week. I think Sean Payton is completely out of line saying something about Nathaniel Hackett. I think there is I don't think there's any reason for him to say, what the condition of things were left. It was a one-year head coach. It was a guy who's never coached before. And I just think that in that type of situation, there's really no need for Sean Payton to comment on anything. Why can't he just, absorb kind of everything? And again, there's no real reason to tarnish kind of Hackett's name by throwing out these kind of stray bullets, right? And so to me, again, what this boils down to is I think this is a worse look for the Broncos ownership and GM situation because they're the ones who hired Hackett. They're the ones who brought on Hackett. They're the guy they brought in a guy who's never had any coaching experience before. They're the ones who brought in everything around it, kind of all threw it at him and say, hey, you're a first-year head coach. Just kind of figure all this out. So if anything, I think it's Sean Payton. Sean Payton is indirectly throwing comments at the same people who are paying his bills at the end of the day.
He's doing a couple of things. One, he's kind of giving Russell Wilson an excuse in sort of, in public, making this excuse for Russell Wilson. Two, he's giving himself kind of a fallback. They won 5 games last year with Russell Wilson. And in the meantime, the Seahawks got better without Russell Wilson. Let's not forget that. So, So Sean Payton is kind of building in excuses for everybody by doing this. The Aaron Rodgers side, I've got zero problem with, a player. He's obviously coming out publicly and sticking up for one of his coaches. I think that Nathaniel Hackett being with the Jets played a big part in Aaron Rodgers' decision to go there. But I'll just say this. I've got no problem with anything either of these guys said. Like, that these coaches think this kind of stuff about other coaches all the time, but none of them are willing to, to sit there with a microphone in front. He did this in a USA Today interview. None of them want to say anything bad about these other guys. They all give you the polished, rehearsed answers to everything. So why should we be mad at Sean Payton for coming out and actually saying something when nobody else wants to say anything? So I've got and he came back and he apologized. He's like, well, I was still wearing my TV hat, because he was on Fox and all this stuff last year. I realize, again, like he's saying this about a guy who he followed, he took his job, but I've got no problem with him saying it. And the best part about this whole thing is, like, you couldn't have written the script for this any better, because these two teams are going to play in week 5. And it's like giving us it's like a pro wrestling, card buildup that we're getting out of this whole thing. They're shooting back and forth and, they're cutting promos left and right for the NFL and the network. So I've got no problem with anything either of these said. Sean Payton spoke his truth. Aaron Rodgers spoke his truth. And I would rather have that, because it gives us something to talk about, something actual interesting to talk about. And again, not getting these vanilla comments, that you usually get from coaches. It's not coaches speak by any means.
Yeah, I respect that. And it's definitely opened me up to a side of things I didn't think of in I guess, because like you were saying, there's obvious, a lot of coaches do a lot of talking behind each other's back. And I do respect Peyton for, basically just being upfront about it. There was no going behind anyone's back. He was very, said how he honestly felt. And that's also, respectable and admirable at the same time. And yeah, like I get it. Hackett was bad last year. It was objectively bad coaching. But again, it's a guy in his first year and he was thrown a lot of pieces and told to make it work. So like, it doesn't, like, no one's riding Cliff Kingsbury right now. Like there was an article today.
No, I mean,
that's Cliff Kingsbury as well, and his lack of.
That's true. I think the job
detail and stuff,
and
like
that's a fair point too. The job Kingsbury did with more of a roster in Arizona, I think, was definitely worse than the Broncos. Even though, the Broncos are kind of in an in-between place right now with what they've got on their roster.
I guess what I'm saying is all of these guys are still actively coaching, so there's no reason to publicly slander someone as they're still actively coaching, because it's still a ring of coaches who, especially in the NFL, like guys get second opportunities. Guys, there's the average, I feel like, length of a coaching tenureship is like 2 to 3 years, and then they're on to somewhere else. So it's like, that's the only part I didn't respect, is that he's, in a ring of guys who are, it's ultimately kind of like a bro code almost, right? Like you don't just publicly air out your other.
And that's my point. That's why to me it's fun to hear it, because there is a bro code. They typically don't come out and slam each other like that. But again, he's going to have to put up or shut up now, because he's going to play the Jets in week 5, and it's going to be on
and like
CBS.
You said, he's really kind of added this cushion for himself of like, oh, everything was so bad last year. And it's like, well, if you're just as bad or worse, then you've really dug yourself a grave.
Right. But he better be ready, because I think if Hackett and Aaron Rodgers have their chance and they're in the, they're primed to just run it up if the situation presents itself against the Broncos in that game. So Jesse, Subway is offering free sandwiches for life to someone who's willing to legally change their name to Subway. They'll be given $750 to cover the expenses of the name change. Would you do it?
So if you asked me this question a year ago, I would have been like a 1 out of 10. Today, I'm like a 3 out of 10. Their sandwiches are a lot better. I like that they've, revamped their menu. They got all these, athletes, whether it be Charles Barkley, Steph Curry, there's multiple people, but again, I like the rebranding they've done. I like
Subway Christophic says yes.
I like that their sandwiches are better. But yeah, I'm saying a year ago from now, I'm considering it more now than I would have a year ago. But at the end of the day, I would never do it as enticing as it sounds. If it was Jersey Mike's, I think you might have a strong shot out of me. But Subway subs just, they've run their course on me. It would nice to be, have free sandwiches for life, but I think I'd get really over it, and then I'd get tired of hearing people call me Subway, all the time.
Carlos is bringing the heat. 3 shows, 1 day. Thank you very much. Glad to have you here, Carlos. And there's no way I could do it either. I would not want to be referred to as Subway. I couldn't go for it. I'm trying to think of like what product it would have to be. Like what gasoline Styres, if I got gasoline for life or something, or
that kind of rhymes though.
Yeah, that's right. Old gasoline Styres, he's on fire. Blimpy. Ooh, Blimpy. Ooh, man, I haven't had a Blimpy in a long time, and I think there's a reason why.
Who's the White Castle of the group?
Oh, that'd make you think there, wouldn't it? Josh, by the way, wants to know how bad Dallas looked at training camp.
Man, that's just a straight shot for no reason.
I know. They did. I did make my trip to Oxnard last week when I was in California.
Is it the first time you've ever been to Oxnard?
It is.
That's pretty cool.
Time. Yeah. We did the whole Central Coast California thing from Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and all the way down into Oxnard.
Number one ND fan has a pretty good one.
Number one ND fan, Mountain Dew Driscoll. Hey. I don't know if Vince is still there. I don't know what his would be. I don't know what his limit would be if he would go in on the Subway or not.
His would be how many is it just one per him every day, or does he get one for every member of his family every day? I think that'd be the deciding line for Vince.
That's
especially 5 years ago.
If they did, like one of those monster subs, like if it was one of those,
and he could just cut it up for everyone. I think
could feed the D'Adarios for a week. That's right. He would. I know his wife might be pushing for it. Alfredo D'Addario.
I knew it was going to be something that rhymed, and it would be Italian.
I thought he would say like Whopper D'Addario or something like that.
Big Mac D'Addario.
Yeah. It's funny how pro training camp and college training camp are not that dissimilar. The Cowboys did not show very much, and what they did when they did do anything, they had 2 practice fields outside like Notre Dame, and of course, when they were doing anything somewhat live, they did it on the far field, away, as far away from as many people as possible. So they didn't show a lot. The funniest thing that happened was early in practice. They had Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, the head coach, who's taken over the offense this year. He was down there with the quarterbacks. They had the quarterbacks throwing into those nets, and how they've got like those big, like the slots, holes in the net. They had targets. 3 different holes. And when Dak would hit the target, he would get cheered pretty loudly just for hitting a net target that was hanging underneath the goalpost. When he would miss the target, he was booed pretty lustily as well. None of the other quarterbacks got cheered or booed, but Dak got both based on how he did or didn't hit the target in the net. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Something I wanted to sneak in here. We're about 24 hours away from the trade deadline. Do you have any, if you had to hypothesize any big moves, do you think it's going to be relatively quiet? Do you think there's something big getting ready to happen? What are your overall thoughts I know you probably watch more MLB Network during the day than I do, so you kind of see probably more of, some rumors or stuff going around. I'm just curious of potentially stuff that you've heard. I've heard a lot about Verlander. But yeah, I'm just curious, with about 24 hours left, what kind of big blockbuster move do you anticipate, if any?
D-Hawk says Verlander to Baltimore. I think the Orioles have got to make a big move. The Ohtani thing is still interesting because
the Angels have basically said they're going to ride it out, and now they're trading for everyone.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. They've been buyers, but just within the last 24 hours or so, I've started to see even more about Ohtani maybe moving, and they're talking about the big markets.
I've heard New York, Chicago, and one other one.
Yeah, the Cubs.
I've heard the Cubs, and the Cubs got the money to do it. I didn't want to bring that up, but I've heard it more than once now.
Would you? How far in?
And you got Suzuki already, in Chicago. I think that helps a little bit.
I mean, would you? That's a very good point. Like you'd have a teammate he could.
That's what I
like
mean. And
be buddies with.
both of them would be buddies together.
You go in and you get him this year, and then you potentially got an ace plus the best bat in your lineup.
Right.
If you're able to re-sign him down the road.
What do you think of the Rangers kind of going? Pushing their chips in, got a lot of starting pitching, right? They got was it Scherzer and Montgomery from the Cardinals? Montgomery's all right. That's more of a depth piece, I feel like, the back end of your rotation.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. I think what a lot of people, brought up, I can't remember what broadcast I was listening to the other day, but I think the most exciting thing right now is compared to in years past. I mean, like the Orioles are leading their division. The Texas Rangers are leading the division. The Reds are leading their division. You're just seeing a lot of teams that we haven't really seen be divisional leaders in a while. And I think that's pretty fun about baseball. Now you're seeing them being aggressive about their moves. Like the Orioles are going to get aggressive here before the deadline. And the Rangers have already been, aggressive before the deadline. And I'm curious to see who's going to sell it all off. I think the Cardinals are going to be one of those teams to kind of sell it all off here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think so as well, the way things are played out for them. And, the Cubs were sort of, teetering. What are they going to do? And then they rattle off 8 straight. And all of a sudden they're right in the thick of things. Now they've got a big decision to make in terms
they got
of
to add
do they
someone
go out
in that bullpen.
Yeah.
I think at the very least they add someone in the bullpen, and you might try to get a first baseman for depth. I've heard Yan Mercado from the White Sox. The Cubs and White Sox are very notorious about swapping players at the deadline just because it's an easy transition. It's the same city. Oh, wow. They just got Candelario from the Nationals. That's huge.
And I believe Candelario is a guy who was
at one point.
He was in the Cubs organization for a while.
I want to say he was a part of that Aroldis Chapman trade, but I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
Wow. And so what makes that interesting to me is, Candelario, they're lacking first and third baseman this year, but they've got away with allowing Bellinger to play first base because Tauchman has been so tremendous in center field. I mean, the guy just robbed a home run to win the game the other night, but, saved a walk-off from the Cardinals. And so Morel is like the obvious long-term situation at third, but it seems like they're just not ready for him to be there yet. So Candelario is is kind of the rental for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Very interesting. Not a huge move, but decent piece. We'll see.
Like they're platooning 3 guys at third base right now. So obviously that was something that they wanted to address.
Getting the most out of. Are you more sold on David Ross as a manager today than you were 3 weeks ago?
I have to say, because he got them to win when they really needed to win. And they're the team with the highest batting average, the most runs scored since the All-Star break. Like they've just been mashing the baseball all around. So yeah, there's coaching involved with that. I guess my frustration would be, where has this been all season? They're the only team in the division with a plus or minus run differential. How much that matters to a lot of people, I don't know. But you look at their roster and you look at, run differential. They just should be a little bit better. And I still question Ross's continuous lineup changes. There's guys I get it moving guys around, but just no one's got a set spot, it feels like, anymore. Do we know that it's all coming from him though, or is it front office analytics? That's what's hard to tell these days, is who's actually pulling the strings, because so many of the decisions are made by the analytics department, who just, spit out the sheet and hand it to the manager that given day. Yeah. And that's obvious. Yeah. It's something you got to look at. And I guess I'll kind of end it here. I still question his bullpen decisions when he brings in kind of certain guys here and there, and who he decides to go to. So we'll see. There's about 55 games left. Cubs are 3.5 out. It's anyone's division. They're obviously all in now because they acquired Candelario. But this is like when the baseball season is at its best. The trade deadline, it shows who's committed to all in and all out. And then you got about 55 games remaining to figure it out,
Yep. Thank you very much, Derek. And we will wrap it up with that tonight. Man, we've got a lot coming up this week. We've got another practice viewing in the morning, of course, and then we won't have anything until Saturday. But once Saturday hits, we'll be out there quite a bit for the next few days after that. So a lot coming up. So it's training camp, baby, and we're inching our way. I think we're 26 days away from kickoff at this point on August 26th. Smash the like button on your way out. We do appreciate it. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.